In this video, I want to talk about the model and environment interface. Depending on what products you're dealing with, most likely you'll have some sort of interface between your product and the environment you're placing it in. When you're dealing with basic scenes, this is typically less of an issue. The empty scenes that you place your model into are usually fairly conducive to the interface between them. When you start dealing with more presentation type scenes, such as this courtyard background that's been in SolidWorks for quite a while, you start to run into issues where your model might look great in the scene, but it's obviously very fake when it interfaces between the scene and your model, especially with something like a vehicle like this 2010 Camaro assembly model. It's so important that your tires touch the ground and that it actually appears as if portions of the tire are flattened, whether that means that you drew them that way or you actually push it down through the floor, raise the floor of your environment up just slightly. That way, it looks as if there's some weight on the vehicle. Not only that, making sure that your materials are good. A rubber tire in this case is something that's very hard to get right. It's usually better for you to actually draw tire treads rather than try to apply a tire tread material. Now, the reason for that is the tire tread material looks pretty good, but it's not realistic as it rolls over the side of the bead. The sidewall of the tire will never look realistic when you're trying to apply some sort of appearance or material to it. So it's a good idea that you physically draw in tire grooves and some sort of tire tread, even if it's just a small amount on the side to get raised lettering and things like that. It'll make that just a little bit more realistic. Now, the courtyard scene specifically is one that in the past has been very difficult to integrate. The scenes in the background are blurry. So when you stick a very focused model in the center of it and you have a blurry background, it typically doesn't give you a very good feel or a very good indication that that product is actually real. Really, the problem is the floor interface. Now, I've noticed in the past couple versions, maybe just 2014 and 2015, that they've done away with a lot of the realistic cobblestone flooring and done more of a blurred flooring to give you a little bit better interface between the products. But one thing you'll notice here is that, at least in the preview window, the tires, at least the material on the tires, doesn't look real. It looks like it's actually emitting light. It's brighter than we feel it should be. It's very important that you take very, very close look at the materials that are touching your environment. Let's go ahead and recall the last rendered image, which is a full resolution version of this car in the cobblestone scene. Now, one thing you'll notice as we start to zoom in is the background is blurry and the car is in focus. In some cases, this will be fine, but in a lot of cases, you'll actually want the interface between the back of the car or the back of the product and the environment that it's in to be blurry as well. And that's where you can make good use of things like having a camera where you're using those depth of field clipping planes. So you can zoom in on what you want, for instance, the front of the car or a certain portion of the car, and everything behind it starts to get blurry. So that way, the car actually looks like it's blurring into the background imagery as if it's actually placed there. When you're dealing with other products, such as consumer products or things that you need to place in the environment, again, you want to make sure that the interface between your environment is realistic. You don't want a cell phone standing up on end, just floating in the environment. You want to have it actually laying on the ground as if it was placed there. Pay close attention to how it's actually sitting in the scene because you don't typically have any gravity. You're not dealing with a motion study where you can apply gravity and have a floor and have the product actually fall down to it. You need to place these by using your assembly mates or physically moving them down and aligning with some certain geometry to make sure that it appears as if it's sitting on a surface or sitting on the ground floor of your scene. These types of model interfaces can make a huge difference between how that render looks, if it looks fake or if it looks very realistic.